Sate, bitches! The war arc in the 7 Deadly Sins nailed the shonen war arc that so many other anime seem to have a problem with. So, being that I'm the 7 Deadly Sins connoisseur of YouTube, being that at this point no one aside from Anime Uproar talks about it, whammin' and gentle whammin', here's why it's absolute greatness. War arcs in general have a problem. They're used as this massive climax, it's all really exciting and stuff, but in the end of the day, if the focus is purely on making a big boom boom between a lot of big characters, then it's gonna fail. Naruto War Arc painted and paved the road for all future shonen anime to come as far as comparing war arcs. In the Naruto War Arc, we brought everyone back to have this massive fight where by the end of the war arc, the main characters are so much more overpowered than everyone else in the entirety of the series. The fights were pretty damn cool, and in the end of the day, the war arc was a third of the entire Naruto story. Pretty terrifying, if I do say so myself. Now, there were many things I did like about the Naruto War Arc, such as the themes of Kakashi being wrapped up really nicely. But as far as what I didn't like about the Naruto War Arc was, unfortunately, the majority. When the focus is on the superficial, let's give Gaara a cool fight, and let's let Kankuro do something after being shamefully destroyed by Sasori early in the series, as opposed to focusing on wrapping up the themes of the various characters, well then, you get a pretty crappy war arc. No offense, Naruto fans. I know I'm not allowed to insult the series, but war arc was not exactly the strongest. I've seen in many places all over the deep dark corners of the internet, not that deep dark, this is hyperbole, that because of this reason, war arcs suck. And while they are easy to mess up if you want to focus on the superficial aspects and fights, no, war arcs do not inherently suck, and that is the purpose of this video and mini-series. Today, covering the greatness of the war arc in the 7 Deadly Sins, and next time, covering Black Clovers. So feel free to subscribe if this seems to wet your whiskers. Now, something important that should be noted about the 7 Deadly Sins in general is that the power scaling is ass. Wow, I'm just dropping truth bombs today. But the power scaling is garbage, and if you've watched any of my previous analyses on the 7 Deadly Sins, especially on the various characters, you'll know that the reason why I absolutely love this story so damn much, it's because of how every fun, lighthearted, superficial aspect in the story has a dark shadow in a thematic or psychological sense in regards to the characters or fights taking place. Now, the war arc, which I believe is going to be the finale, or at least the finale of this massive segment of the series, plays to the strengths of the series as well. Power scaling wise and superficial fight wise, I was not hooked in the slightest. I know after every chapter, people were getting really excited by, oh my god, Escanor just used another really massive attack that did nothing against Eldris. Yes, very cool. But at the same time, I feel like so many of the themes of the individual characters were wrapped up in this arc, it made every fight that was going on feel like so much more. I'm recording this video right after chapter 299 of the manga, when a certain Meliodas just opened his eyes. I wanted to place focus on this fact because why I like the war arc until this point is because Meliodas, who was the character that was the beacon of light throughout the entire series, gathering the Sins together, guiding them into their battles, this is the guy that was not present, and the guy who we had no idea what would become of him throughout the entire majority of the battle. By the fact that he was not present, it gave us a perfect chance to wrap up the themes of so many other characters. There was so much development in these rambunctious battles, it made me come to peace with every single character in the series, one at a time. Even looking at the minor characters like Gilthunder and Hendrickson. These guys were human fodder. They had no power in this fight whatsoever that they can contribute, but instead, Gilthunder was in love with the Whammon whose body was possessed by one of the archangels, and Hendrickson grew as a person to the point that he expelled Ludociel from Margaret's body and then said, hey, I know you need a vessel, I'm willing to sacrifice myself. This is the guy that resented being a puppet of the demons this entire time, but he's willing to come to grips with his fate and give himself up to become a vessel once again. Ludociel, the character I've just mentioned, fought with additional wrath due to the fact that her younger brother Mael was quote-unquote killed in the Holy War 3,000 years ago. It turns out that this brother is alive, and yet he still bowed his head to defend Merlin against the sinner. Ludociel looked down at all non-archangels in their previous fight against these archdemons, but at this point, after seeing her brother alive, Merlin trying to protect humanity, and Hendrickson willing to sacrifice himself for the sake of humanity, that Ludociel was willing to lower himself to their level. This is the Ludociel that everyone hated until this point for looking down at all other races. And this is the Ludociel whose arc ends giving up his life force to defend these lower races. Now let's talk 7 deadly sins themselves. I'll save Mile for the end. And as far as the 7 deadly sins go, well, Merlin, who had the power of infinite magic and always pretty much accomplished anything by herself, she was the character that needed to be defended by the rest of the support cast for half the fight. As far as Diane, King, and Gowther, they had an interesting relationship. King, the entire time, always felt inferior, and due to this piece of his nature, he was unable to maintain or create a relationship, and he also doubted everyone. He's introduced into the series trying to somehow kill the immortal Ban because he blamed Ban for the destruction of the Fairy King Forest, which, let's be honest, Ban did have a little to do with. Later in the series, when he finds out Meliodas used to be a member of the Commandments, he immediately turns on Meliodas in the middle of the training arc, saying, "Can we really trust you?" And then proceed to fight against Meliodas, who at this point has 10 times the power level of King. I really believe a lot of it stems from himself feeling inferior. His sister died without him being able to protect her. Diane gets her memories erased without him being able to protect her. And things just don't really seem to be going his way. Even Hellbram died without him being able to protect him, and he died twice. Damn it! So King had his massive moment where he actually became the strongest fairy king in history, surpassing all of his predecessors and being able to take on Mile, as well as learning to forgive and trust, because he ended up trusting Gowther, this guy that he's hated for a really long time. This wraps up his arc fantabulously. Diane, I've mentioned it before, I'll say it again. Diane is my least favorite of the 7 deadly sins, and I genuinely feel like she's supposed to be kind of a bounce-off character for King's ideals, and I really love King, so hey, I guess she served her purpose as a perfect shonen woman. King has a power level of like 200,000 now, and non-dancing Diane has like a power level of 8,000. Very cool, Diane. Very cool. Now, as for Gowther, this guy was fascinating throughout the series. We never understood him, and now we finally, well, at least understand him a little bit better. It turns out Gowther's a doll created by old Gowther, who is one of the 10 commandments, and he tweaked everyone's mind into thinking different stuff. The honest truth is this was not explained until recently, and we still don't understand the motivations behind why he decided to do it. I hope they end up explaining it and don't just leave it up to the wind, but until that's explained, I can't fully delve into Gowther's character, but I can say that Gowther, the doll that we've known until this point, that's just been manipulating human emotions since the end of season 1, making Guilo fall in love with him, then erasing Diane's memories, pissing off King. He's someone that doesn't feel emotion and therefore is curious as to what toying with these emotions would be like. He also wishes to have emotion. So Gowther doing something selfless, like sacrificing himself for others, completely counteracts the purely selfish nature of someone without emotions. He manages to complete himself as a person by, despite not having emotions, still managing to care for his comrades. This wraps up the Diane King Gowther quandary without putting any emphasis on any of the points I've mentioned. It was all of them just fighting against this crazy Esterosa guy who started sucking commandments more than the fan base sucks Escanor's dick. And speaking of Escanor's dick, damn, did it play a big role in this arc. Escanor fought literally everyone. He fought Zeldris, he fought Sinner Guy, and every time they'd knock him down, he'd get up again. I've loved Escanor throughout the series, and something that he's always had on his side was being completely overpowered in regard to his adversaries. He's always completely annihilated them, and that is why, in his son form, at least, he is the sin of pride. No one stands at his level. They only reach his metaphorical waist as far as power levels goes. The perfect height to suck his metaphorical willy. Escanor's fights throughout the series were so satisfying as well as so sad, because as a guy who has ultimate pride, it kind of counteracts his personal feelings towards anyone. If everyone is just an ant before you and doesn't have the right to decide anything that counteracts Escanor's almighty decisions, how can you look at them as an equal or a friend? He's always loved Merlin because Merlin's magic power is infinity, something that even the most prideful, overpowered being in the world could look up to is infinite. So obviously he loved Merlin throughout. Now, as far as everyone else, he looked down on them. They are barely worthy of being the pebbles beneath the soles of his mighty feet.
Oru Breite, son for Oru.
He was the epitome of badass. And now, speaking of ass, he's having it handed to him. He's fighting Zeldris with Demon King power, and he's fighting against the 2 archdemons that have become the Sinner, who is also ridiculously strong. Escanor is outclassed in strength. But he will not take that as an option. He is the mighty Lord Escanor. So he'll keep standing up, and he'll keep throwing the most pompous of insults at these opponents that are even more powerful than he is. Granted, when he has his 1 minute of awesomeness, which it's 1 minute of awesomeness. God, I love that chapter. We were welcomed back into satisfying Escanor mode, but in the end of the day, his imperfections were thrust upon him fighting opponents far more powerful than he was, and he was slowly developing throughout. If you remember in the beginning of the fight, when Ludociel said to Escanor, we should team up to take them, Escanor's like, team up with you? You pitiful lowly excuse for a creature, I could take these guys myself. Obviously he couldn't, but this is the Escanor we know and love, the one that looks down upon all things. Of course, he teamed up with Ludociel because Merlin's like, yo, Escanor, please team up with him. And Escanor was like, sure thing, Whammon, anything for you. Because in the end of the day, Escanor still has a dick and he wants to plow one of infinite power. But the thing is, by the end of the fight, it wasn't due to Merlin's requests that he respected others. After he was blasted away by the Sinner and was caught by Mael, the original Archangel that originally used Escanor's current sunshine power. Escanor was all washed up. He was at his strength, and he said to Mael, take my sunshine power. You would do much better with it than I would right now. We need you to help my friends. This is the pivotal moment in Escanor's entire story. It's when Pride Day version of Escanor can finally treat others as friends. Until this point, it was only the Night version of Escanor that ever showed any appreciation for the other sins. Day version of Escanor looked down upon all beings. That's why when he fought against Estarossa, the guy with the commandment of love, if you hate him at all, you are completely powerless against him. This guy just killed Meliodas, the guy who basically saved Escanor after being ostracized by his town and whatever. And Escanor harbored no hatred towards Estarossa. He merely pitied him. If someone killed my best friend in front of my eyes, if I had friends, yeah, if anyone killed my best friend in front of my eyes, I'd hate the guy. Escanor didn't. I mean, Night Escanor probably did. Day Escanor didn't. And this is the Day Escanor right now that's telling Mael, yo, take my sunshine power. You'd do better with it. Please protect my friends. It's the ultimate growth for Escanor. Completely completed his thematic journey, finally beating his pride. Finally, we have Ban. Ban is my favorite character in the 7 Deadly Sins, and my video on Ban is one of my favorite videos I've ever made. I do highly suggest checking it out. Link will be in the description and at the end of the video. The thing about Ban is the sin of greed. He was ultimate greed. All of his attacks were steals. He would steal people's strength, steal people's hearts. He'd be immortal, living as everything around him withers. He watched his love die, suffered from depression, finally joined the Sins. The Sins were disbanded. He decided to be a masochist, sit in a prison just feeling pain, physical pain, to keep the mental pain away. The Sins regather. He joins them, I guess. Kinda half-heartedly, but he does. Always with a sad look in his eyes, but he's a happy guy. Goddess Clan says kill Meliodas to revive Elaine, and he tries to do that, then feels terrible about himself, so he leaves the Sins completely destroyed as far as all of his personal decisions and his greed that he had to try to kill his best friend Meliodas to bring back Elaine. He ends up meeting up with Meliodas again. Their broship becomes even more awesome. And then he does an act of selflessness. As Estarossa is about to kill Meliodas, he pops out to try to save him, but his selflessness was futile, and Meliodas died. Or so he thought. Meliodas is trapped in Purgatory, this place of infinite pain. So he's like, hell yeah, I'm gonna go save my buddy. So he goes to Purgatory. Purgatory arc is my favorite arc in the 7 Deadly Sins, by the way. Fun fact, he pops out of Purgatory after meeting up with Meliodas and having some more sick bro moments. He's finally comfortable with himself and finally defeats depression. He walks onto the battlefield and he fully revives Elaine with a new power. No, the new power is not called Steel. It's called Gift. And he gifts away his immortality to revive Elaine. He literally gifts his life for another. The ultimate act of selflessness, destroying his greed and completing his psychological journey. In this war arc, Ban defeats greed, Escanor defeats pride, Diane finally becoming King's Whammon defeats envy, King actually stepping out of his shell and accomplishing something amazing defeats sloth. Gowther, someone who forever did not have emotions, finally does something selfless that only someone with emotions should be able to do. He cares about his friends, and with that, he defeats lust or his lack thereof. Merlin, for the first time, tasted failure defeating gluttony, and Meliodas has just awakened. So I look forward to the point where he defeats wrath. Ladies and gentlemen, that's why the 7 Deadly Sins freaking nailed its war arc. The war arc had a lot of really fun, really fantastic fights. Mael versus King, 1 minute Escanor versus Zeldris, Merlin versus the 2 archdemons, Mael versus Zeldris. These fights were all fantastic on the superficial level. That's what a war arc needs to be. Fantastic on the superficial level, but also it has to mean something below that level. I love the 7 Deadly Sins because that's what the whole series is. I made a whole video dissecting the entirety of the series. The whole story is about the facade. How the first arc and first season of the show, it's a happy story. Happy-go-lucky knights having a great time saving their kingdom, but underneath every single one of them had psychological baggage. And that is revealed tenfold throughout the 10 Commandments saga. This war arc gave everyone a big moment superficially, but also had each of them conquer their individual psychological terror. That's why this arc is amazing. And I didn't even mention Mael, because being that Meliodas is away, kind of sealed up for this arc, and a lot of development happened to Mael. Ladies and gents, you can expect a full video on why Mael is the secret main character of the 7 Deadly Sins, especially the war arc. Whammin' and gentlemen, have yourself a most wonderful evening. Leave a like on this video if you enjoyed, and feel free to subscribe for future anime analysis or satire content, be it 7 Deadly Sins or another war arc done right video, because this was a lot of fun to put together. Let me know what you'd want in the comments. Link in the description to my Bond video, to my Twitter, to my Oru Brightu merch, to the Rant Cafe Podcast channel where we upload our podcasts, and to my Patreon. I really appreciate all the donors to my Patreon. You really make this possible. Anyone who becomes a patron is invited to the Discord server. I did, however, want to especially thank E-Laser, Sash, Nick Sands, King Tank Games, Praise Lord Bobo, Frisky Dingo, Florida Man, Michael Hensley, D. Chillin, Miriam Ramirez, Chersey, Q, Thidges Hendricks, Colton Scott, Praise Lord Dugirgamesha, Billy Thompson, Nate Salve says Gremmin, The Night Brights, Sergeant Malarkey, Buried Minotaur, The Ultimate, Kaiser Wanar, Crazy Beats, Divine Reigns, Miku, Teakui, TM Philly, Taylor Ayers, King Beat My Meat, David Anole, Negus Nogus, Age of Snake, Steelers, Pop-Up, Grumpy Welshman, Wilson Fletcher, Team Sparky 65, Girthy Worm Jin, Allison Stricker, JD Fincher, Q-Tip, Cosine Pit Shifters, The Lord Tweegers, Measy Jeezy, Anthony Booth, Cream My Pancake, Prella, Rari, MD, Adria Pica, Santo Kiyomasa, James Patterson, Emperor Misha, and Kyle the Warrior. Thanks to the God Usopp Rank, Burning Bush, Dark Element Eduardo Flores, The Wolf of Gar, Muafak Necro, Sonny Parks, and Maurice Louis Dreyfus, and thank you Shane Harden for having Hashirama cells. Thanks to everyone still sticking around until this point. Hope you did enjoy this video. Have yourselves a most wonderful evening, and remember to stay weird, fam.